Hey everybody. Welcome to I'm still trying to come up with a good name for my little show, and I do uh music and talking about bands. And I don't know, Music Corner seems to be winning out. So I am the Kid Johnny C. This is my, I guess you could say, my little music corner of the world. So we'll go with that for the time being. Um Today I've been wanting to talk about this band for a long time, and I feel like I've got a few pieces of some puzzles in that made this video look really sharp, really good, as far as props and things like that goes. So this band that I want to talk to you about today is, and I'm anybody who can see my shirt, you probably will know who I'm about to talk about. Yes, I'm about to talk about Australian metal band, started out in the late 80s, um, as a group called Light Force, and it's the back cover to the album. Um, they would do two albums. This would be the next one, called Battle Zone. And yes, these are some touched up covers, um, done by, I believe, if my memory serves me correctly, I believe these were touched up by Scott Waters of No Life Till Metal, and released via Sound Mass Records. Um, but more on him in just a little bit. But yes, I'm going to be talking about the band Mortification. So Mortification came out of Light Force, and uh, basically it was a kind of a punk metal, heavy metal band, that the leader Steve Rowe kind of wanted to take in some different directions. Just a matter of trying to find the right people to do it with. And so we get to the first album. And by the way, here's the CD of Mystical Thieves and Battle Zone as well. Um, he eventually would land on Jason Sherlock on drums, and on the Break the Curse, and I believe on the first album, or maybe on just the Break the Curse demo, um, a fellow named Cameron Hall. But it wouldn't be until, and this is the Break the Curse demo that was done in 1990. A lot of these songs would eventually show up on. I think I'm going to go to this box set because these covers actually look a little sharper. They would show up on this first album, the self-titled. This album would feature Michael Carlisle on guitar. He would take over for Cameron Hall. Still have Jason Sherlock on drums. On this album, I mean, you've got a lot of what is considered Mortification classics. Very thrashy, maybe a little bit of black metal, a little doomy. But I mean, you have classics that the band would still perform bits and pieces of until they had to stop touring and stop playing. Songs like Brutal Warfare, of course, the well-known majestic Infiltration of Order, otherwise known as God Rules. Just a very quick couple minutes track. Destroyer Beholds, another track that was a very well-known song. But I mean, there's a lot of good songs. Bathed in Blood, Satan's Doom, Until the End. I mean, this is a very strong album. Next up, they would go in a more much darker sound, and they would go with Scrolls of the Megaloth, which this has a lot of doom sound, very black metal, very dark guttural vocal. Strong album. The Terminate Damnation, great song. Nocturnal, great song. Eternal Lamentation, another great song. Raise the Chalice, actually could kind of pass for a single. It was a very good song. Lymphosarcoma would be something that would still show up in Mortification set now and then. The title track, Scrolls of the Megaloth, Necromancer, Inflamed, Ancient Prophecy. I mean, not only was Steve Rowe writing songs mostly, but Jason Sherlock had a good hand in writing some of these tracks on this album too. And Michael Carlisle, again, just showing his prowess on guitar, which fit the songs well. It may not be your typical Yngwie Malmsteen or Eddie Van Halen kind of sound, but it fit the songs perfectly. Next up would be the album Post Momentary Affliction. Again, great songs on this album, from The Valley of the Shadows, Human Condition, Distarnished Priest, well-known black Mortification songs, Grind Planetarium, great groove, riff, thrashy song. This Momentary Affliction, another quick little, very quick song. Impulsation, something from the original Break the Curse album that made this album. Very strong album, very, very strong album. I'm not going to touch on the live albums too much, but this is Grind Planetarium. And this, again, is also a touch-up version. A lot of these covers were kind of touched up a little bit by the Scott Waters and the No Life Till Metal crew. This is the original Intense Records version of it. This album was actually my introduction to Mortification. I knew a guy who played drums. He was introduced to me, and he was a big fan. He liked that album. He had a couple of other albums that I didn't expect to inherit, but I did. And so Grind Planetarium was my introduction, and I really liked the heaviness, the thrashiness of it, the absolute tightness that they showed. It just was a solid live performance. So I was hooked. So I started digging around for some more of their other albums. Next up, Jason Sherlock would then leave the band. They would bring on Phil Gibson to play drums on Blood World. This is a little bit less doomy thrash, still thrashy, speedy, not quite as doomy sounding, and not quite as black metal sounding. Blood World, great track. Your Life, another one that would make the sets later on. Symbiosis with a great riff. It was debuted at the Live Planetarium album. Symbiosis, another great song. As I mentioned, Love Song, another song that would make its way into sets. Again, there's just more groovy, more. This one, Michael Carlisle really showed, really had a good guitar sound on this. Really had some good chops and some good licks on that. Very, very impressive. Very, very impressive. However, Steve Rowe would then carry on. There was different things going on in the band, and he would go to America to record Primitive Rhythm Machine with I believe it's Georgia Koa from he was known for playing in Deliverance and also Vengeance Rising. Let's see who else played on this. A fellow by the name of Bill Rice on drums and Jason Campbell on rhythm guitar on a couple tracks. Dave Kellogg playing lead on a couple tracks as well, but mostly Georgia Koa. Here again, this is more groove, thrash, power metal sounding. Mephibosheth, well-known Mortification track. Gut Wrench. I love that kind of that gut wrench, that deep guttural sound there. 4031, Isaiah 31. Primitive Rhythm Machine, great track. I mean, another good, strong recording by the band. And so those albums were all on a label called Intense Records. And so Primitive Rhythm Machine would be the last on that label. And so Steve would wind up going back to Australia to continue on, and basically through his own label, Row Productions, would find him putting this gem out. You can't, it's a little tough, can't really see it that well. So let me go to some other props here. Again, I'm going to plug the No Life Till Metal guys and Soundmass. Envision Evangeline, with its basically a 19-minute epic title track talking about how the angels felt about Jesus and what it had to be, what it must have been like to witness Jesus on earth, and just the angels in heaven being so just enamored. Northern Storm, Peace in the Galaxy, great tracks. One of my favorite Mortification tracks is a song called Buried into Obscurity. Chapel of Hope, Noah Was a Knower, with a great groove riff. Crusade for the King, all great tracks. This would feature the debut of Lincoln Bowen on lead guitar, Keith Bannister on drums. Lincoln's sound was, he definitely had a much more shredder sound to his style, and he really brought a great guitar sound to Mortification, making it a lot more, again, it was more of a straight up metal, power metal, not, again, getting away from that doomy, still kind of thrashy, but just a strong, just in your face kind of good metal. Steve Rowe would then go under some medical issues within a couple of years after that album, and he would come back with this one, Triumph of Mercy. Now, Triumph of Mercy basically is a documentation of what Steve was encountering with his health. The song at Triumph of Mercy, the title track, basically is his description of he and his wife's description of what he was going through with his battle with leukemia and everything that they were doing to help him recover and to get well, which is a battle that he's dealt with for many, many years. He still has dealing with. He's had a lot of other side effects from all of that. But I don't really want to focus so much on his health with this. I really just want to focus on the band. But Triumph of Mercy is probably I listened to this so much when I first got it. Songs like Influence, At War with War. Influence is probably one of my favorite, is probably top 5 easy Mortification tracks. This one, it talks about how we need more people of faith and less people exalting self, and that really hits me where I am, because I try to be a man of faith. If you haven't figured it out, Mortification is a Christian metal band, or as Steve likes to put it, a Jesus metal band. Visited by an Angel, Unified Truth, From Your Side, Welcome to the Palindrome. There's just so many good tracks on this album again. Next up, probably my top 5 Mortification album right here, Hammer of God. And let me just, I have to show this off to you. This is the vinyl reissue that just came out. And yes, I still have this wrapped. I've not unwrapped it yet. This I love so much. There's so many great grooves and riffs on this album. Metal Crusade, just like a straight up Iron Maiden chug along song. Martyrs with just a really heavy riff groove. Lock Up the Night, also very groovy, very thrash, strong track. In the Woods, another good track. A Pearl, another slower track. Hammer of God, straight up punk metal song. Liberal Mediocrity, Extreme Conditions, Ride the Light, DWAM, Daniel was a Mosher. Great, all great tracks. Again, I've been listening to that album a lot lately, and it's probably, I would say it's probably my number 3. If I had a guess, I was going to do a ranking of the Mortification albums, and to be very honest with you, to try to do a ranking is honestly was very hard because I love all these albums so much. Here again, I'm just gonna show the vinyl again on this one. This is the next album they did called Silver Cord is Severed. There's again this album maybe not as strong as Hammer of God, but still there's a lot of good songs on this. I love Metal Blessing, which kicks off the album. By the way, new drummer here, Adam Zafrasi, I think is how he pronounces it. If you ever watch this, Adam, you can tell me how you pronounce your name. Access Denied has a great Lincoln Bowen playing and riff. I believe that's his song that he wrote. Hardware, slow grunge, it's just a slow driving riff. Bring the Joy, Standing at the Door of Death, a great track there. I Am a Revolutionary, Whom They Would Kill, the final epic on the Sense of Nerve Endings, and then the final epic, Silver Cord is Severed. Just a slow, pulsing, driving song with some upper tempo parts along the way. This was the original cover to Silver Cord is Severed. And again, Brian Scott Waters and the No Life Till Metal people, they did a fantastic job on the touch up of that one. Really have to applaud you guys. Such a good job with those. So next up, we then go to another live album called 10 Years Not Dead. And this is a good live set. Features more of the Lincoln Bowen era, with Buried into Obscurity, of course, Martyrs, Peace in the Galaxy, Hammer of God, Mephibosheth, which is from Primitive Rhythm of the Machine, and Chapel of Hope. Again, just a good live set. I love the version of Influence on that. I just love that song. I just honestly love that song very much. Mortification would then go under some changes. Lincoln Bowen would leave to, I think he had a child at that point, so I believe that was he decided to take a break from that, and Mortification comes back with a new lineup. Adam Zafrasi, I believe, is still on drums for this one, but we have a guy named I need to remember because I suddenly forgot his name. Jeff Lewis. Thank you. So Jeff Lewis comes into the band, and that's him in the upper corner. And we have a picture also of Mick Jelinek. Mick didn't play on the album, but he joined on right before the album had been fully released. But basically, all the playing on here is Jeff. And this album is a really strong album. It's been a while since I had listened to this one, and there was some really strong songs on here. A Web of Fire, just a really good, strong, in your face track. Priests of the Underground, just a relentless track there. Altar of God, Other Side of the Coin, New York Skies, Apocalyptic Terror. There's again, there was such good playing. Jeff Lewis was a really good player. It's a shame he wasn't able to stay with the band. Um, he was Canadian, and he stayed back. Decided to stay back in Canada and do the where he had stronger family ties. So, so from there would come this album called Brain Cleaner. Now, this would feature Mick Jelinek on guitar, new drummer. This, I believe, I apologize, I don't remember the names. Okay, Mike Forsberg on drums for this one, and he has this album. I think of this era. This one was probably this would probably be my favorite of this particular era. I love the opening track, Boa Constrictor. Too Much Pain, very fast, thrashy, in your face. Purest Intent, slower, grinding kind of track. Brain Cleaner kind of has that little bit of a hardcore punk kind of sound, metal, straight up metal sound. They do a remake of an old Light Force song called 12 Men. Louder Than the Devil, I'm Not Your Commodity. There's a lot of, again, strong riffs, strong guitar playing from Mick, great drums by Mike Forsberg, which then leads into, I'll let you take your pick on the covers you like. This one is called Erasing the Goblin. Here again, we have another drumming change. Damian Piercy takes over. Razorback, great track. Racing the Goblins, another great track. That Shall Be Judged. Escape the Blasphemous Tabernacle, another slow grinder. I loved it. I loved the slow grinders that Steve would do. Forged in Stone, Humanitarian, Servants of the Supreme Message, Short Circuit. I mean, there's a lot. Again, strong album, lots of good riffs, lots of great guitar playing from Mick, which then they would do a live album with him on it. Live Humanitarian. This would feature this features a little bit more of Mick's era. So you do have a couple of other tracks from the previous eras, like Hammer of God, the medley of the older songs. Let's see what Standing at the Door of Death, and Chapel of Hope. So you had some of the older songs still making it in the set, but mostly Mick Jelinek era, and a strong album as well. This would be the last album with Mick on guitar, and Adam Zaffersey comes back into the band. Evil Addiction, Destroying Machine. I realized I didn't spend as much time with this album as I thought, and after listening to it again, I'm like, wow, this was a very strong, heavy album. Again, there's I think I think what this album suffers, I think, is maybe Steve's lyrics and songs were not quite as strong and memorable. It's probably why I was surprised when I listened to it again. I'm like, this is really a good album, but why didn't I listen to this much more? So this is one I need to spend some more time with. The next up would be this EP here. It's called Scribe of the Pentateuch. This marks return of Lincoln Bowen. At this point, Steve was also starting to do a side project band called One Row Vision, and that was kind of more of a punk, garage metal kind of band, I guess you could say. But just I don't know, just a little bit more Ramonesy, I guess you could say, a little more simplistic songs. But there's some different vocal stylings on this one. Like the song in Garland Hall features more of a clean singing by Steve, which was different, but still a good song, catchy song. Scribe of the Pentateuch and Jaws of Life, The White Death. Again, it's just a short album, only about 6 tracks with a few extra live tracks, but still, it's still a good album, a good output by them. And then the final CD that they've done was called Realm of the Skeletor. I should mention that the drummer featured on those last 2 albums was a man named Andrew Esnoof. I'm not, forgive me for butchering your name there, but Lincoln Bowen still on guitar. This was another one I didn't spend a lot of time with, and after hearing it again, I'm like, this is so good. Another very good album. Again, maybe not the most memorable of albums, because it's just it just doesn't seem like they don't have that same kind of that same kind of punch that some of the earlier songs. That was like the songs. The songs were still good, but they just weren't as strong as a lot of the stuff that had come before. But Steve was also dealing with a lot of health issues, which after 2015, basically, he's not been doing music pretty much since then. We have this book that was done on his life story, co-written with Vic Campbell. This came out. When did this come out? I believe this is 2014, 2015, perhaps. 2016. Excuse me, 2016. Unfortunately, I've had this book for ever since then, and I'm a terribly slow reader. I confess, I'm a very slow reader, so I have not really finished this book. But this has really done a lot to explain, and has really given me a good love for Steve, and I certainly wish him the best in his health. So Mortification, basically, they are a grind. They've done a little bit of everything: straight up heavy metal, power metal, grind metal, doom metal, black metal, thrash metal, speed metal, punk metal, hard rock. I mean, there's just like a little bit of everything. You really can't pigeonhole them into one particular genre of metal. Steve just did all kinds of different things, but he also had some great players with him. Between Michael Carlisle, Lincoln Bowen, Jeff Lewis, Mick Jelinek, playing guitars, and of course George Okoa, drummers like Jason Sherlock, and I can't forget on the guitars Cameron Hall, because he did start off with the band. Of course, he had Jason Sherlock on drums, Phil Gibson, Keith Bannister, Adam Zaffersey, Mike Forsberg, Damian Piercy, and Andrew Esnoof. I mean, again, lots of great drummers in the mix there as well. It's just a shame that they didn't sell more albums, and the way, and got the notice and been able to tour. With Steve's health, that made it very hard to be able to tour the world. Unfortunately, when I got into Mortification, he had been dealing with the leukemia by that point, so he really didn't get a chance to tour over in the States. Probably did more European and Australian tours. But if he did come to America after the leukemia, I definitely would not have been anywhere close to where I could have seen him. But anyway, I just love the band. They just connected with me on a level, a very deep level, and so it's been such a joy to go back and listen to so many of these albums. And I'm just like, I just love so many of the grooves. I love so many of the riffs, and just the lyrical content. Also, on a lot of the songs is also very strong. Again, Steve was more into evangelizing, and he wanted to share the gospel with a section of music that tended to be more on the dark side of heavy metal, especially, with black metal, especially, you there with the black metal scene in Norway. Um, you had a lot of, the heavy metal always got, especially the thrash and speed and death and black metal, that tended to always get more of the darker side of things. And Steve just wanted to show the bright side of heavy metal and speed metal and death metal, and that there is a light, and his name is Jesus Christ. So he just wanted to share that with the world. So again, if I was to do a ranking on these studio albums, it would be very hard for me. I think if I had to pick it by era, I would say Scrolls of the Megaloth from the Michael Carlisle era. Um, Probably, of course, I think Hammer of God, hands down, for me, from Lincoln's era. From Mix, I would definitely say Brain Cleaner. And I would rank Relentless and Primitive Rhythm Machine pretty high up there for the standalones that they are. But it would be very hard to really put a ranking on them, because it's every album is just so different that it's just so tough sometimes. But maybe one day I'll try to do a ranking, and I'll throw it out there to everybody. So I hope you all enjoyed me rambling on about Mortification. Let me know what you think of the band. Let me know if you've heard of them. And if you've not heard of them, I'll be happy to say, go look for this album, check this album out, or check this CD out and stuff. But be sure you buy it. Steve Rowe was a big physical copy guy. He didn't like people doing the file sharing, and I'm sure he's not a big fan of Spotify and a lot of those kind of, the streaming services and stuff like that. But anywhere where you can hear them, please do check them out, see what you think, and let me know. Let me know what you think. I'd love to talk to somebody about Mortification. So with that said, I'm going to take off. Peace out. Metal. Stay metal. I love you all. We'll see you soon.